Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, and today we are going to be focusing on the boiler room. So yes, we finally made it in the Tower of Terror outside of the library, and we are headed into the hallway that brings us into the boiler room. So we're going to cover the hallway and then the beginnings of the boiler room because it's all one path, and then we diverge. Two paths diverged in a yellow boiler room, and I chose the path less traveled, which today will be the right path. And with me to discover what's in the right side of the boiler room is Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, what up?
Hey, I'm really excited to be headed into the boiler room. There's so many cool details in here that are in the dark where you really can't see them very well. And there's also some great storyboards and concept art and kind of background information from the Imagineering show guide that nobody really has ever heard before. So very, very excited to share all of that with everybody. But we've got a lot to do today. So let's just dive right in, shall we?
I'm excited because you were talking about these storyboards, and fun fact, I didn't see him. So I'm going to see him with all of y'all.
Surprise, surprise. All right.
Surprise, surprise.
All right. So just to give you a little bit of context about where we're heading, we are going out of either Foxtrot Library or Echo Library. For us, it would have been Foxtrot was where we just headed out, and then into what they call the transition corridor. So, and then, of course, then we'll travel on into the boiler room where we have these paths to go two different directions. But so here is some concept art of what this was going to look like for the Hollywood Haunted Hotel concept before they changed it to the Tower of Terror idea, which we've talked about before. The Imagineers really did take a lot of ideas directly from this concept, even though they kind of changed the ride elements around quite a bit and the ride vehicle. So I'm going to show these, and some of them are going to look very, very familiar to what we have today. So this is actually by David Durand, and you can see the transition corridor here. This version has quite a few more pipes in it and gauges and whatnot in the transition corridor than what we actually see.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. This is, talk about a concept art. This is very different from the reality. This is like if you had unlimited funds versus we have the boiler room at home.
Yeah, it's the budget boiler room transition hallway. Yes. This is another concept, though, which I think is what they went more with, which is just like a simpler hallway with a couple of pipes running down it, a couple of fixtures on the side, and like a exposed brick part of the wall. So this looks a lot more like what we actually got in the transition hallway. And this is the storyboard for it. We are now at frame 55 for our storyboard. And just to kind of recap, because we haven't talked about these in a while, this is essentially like how Disney movies have keyframes, right? For keyframes for animation, where it was like this is the main action of the scene, moving to the next main action of the scene. This is the exact same thing that they use for Imagineering. So when they make a ride, they storyboard it. So they do, this is one of the main action pieces. So in frame 55, it says on the wall opposite the doorway from the library is a sign that reads service elevator and an arrow points the way, which is actually what we do have is a sign that says service elevator with an arrow pointing the way. So that was definitely plugged right in. And this particular photo here looks an awful lot like that concept art, Kirk, because it's just got a couple of pipes down the hallway, a couple of fixtures, and we got the service elevator. So yeah, very, very similar. Is. Then this is the frame 56 of the storyboard. And so this now says scene 4. So we're entering an entirely new scene. And you'll notice that this actually does use that concept art for the Hollywood Haunted Hotel that we just saw. This says, leaving the sitting room, guests proceed along a corridor that takes them on a backstage utility appearance. This is clearly a service area, not meant for hotel guests. Distant thunder can be heard. The lightning flickers as the hotel's electrical system responds to the provocations of the storm outside. As the guests near a set of heavy utility doors, the drone of machinery becomes audible. The corridor ramps down into the boiler room load area. I don't remember it ramping down, though. That doesn't seem like that's something happened. So that's definitely different than this. But anyway, that's the storyboard. And then we're just kind of jumping on in with what we got here, Kirk. So are you ready to talk about objects in the hallway here?
I am. What do you think the ramping down versus ramping up, which do you think would be more ominous for this situation if they actually went with that?
Well, it's my understanding from talking with our good friend Joshua Harris, who's a Tower of Terror expert, Disney historian. I believe he said that in this concept it split like it did in the DCA and Disneyland Paris versions, where there's an upper and a lower version. Like there's two paths. There's one that goes low and one that goes high, essentially. And so I wonder if it has to do with that, is why it's saying it's going down, but I don't know for sure. So cool. I don't know which one would be more ominous, though. I feel like going down, if the things were looming over you, would seem scarier.
Yeah, I would think like as you're going lower, these things are getting bigger above you. But we don't really, if you look at the way the storyboard is, we don't really get to see the size and scope of the boiler room. Like until you're actually in it, and you're only in it, you're butt up right against the machinery immediately. So there's no there is a sense of scale, but there isn't a, whoa, this is mammothly large until we turn the corner.
Right.
You know,
it's
you
true.
Don't really feel that.
You
almost feel like there's just a metal wall in front of you because it's just so massive. It's like, and probably most guests aren't really paying attention. They're just like whipping through there. So I don't even know if they understand what that kind of is until we see the shoveling coal area. So
yeah.
But let's back it up. I just think that's an interesting storytelling element.
Yeah, definitely. Especially as we're going down and you see that furnace at the end of the hallway, but you don't really know what it is because it just looks like a brick wall. But let's hop in with some of these elements that are on the wall here. There is this Federal Electric circuit breaker box. That is where we're headed first. Get excited, kids. We're going to talk a lot about electrical components today.
Do you like valves? Do you like gauges? Do you like boilers? How about
furnaces?
Electrical switching?
It's a very technical episode.
It is so, honestly, I'm not the most technical person, so like having to educate myself on some of these things, it was quite the process because I don't really have that engineering mindset.
Yeah, same. But there is some things other than that. So if you're like, no, I don't like all the technical jargon, don't worry. We have other stories too. But
stick around because we'll keep your interest piqued.
Let's talk about this fuse box, shall we?
Transition.
So this likely houses fuses designed to protect the circuit from overcurrent by melting and breaking the circuit when a fault occurs. So the brand Federal actually refers to the Federal Electric Company, which is a real manufacturer of early 20th century electrical panels, because likely is an antique that they salvaged. This is not something they created necessarily. It was later known as Federal Pacific Electric. It was an electrical products manufacturer based in Newark, New Jersey. It was one of the big 5 electrical equipment manufacturers in the United States in the mid-20th century. So this is what some other electrical panels that were made from them. They look similarly. These are real ones that were out in the real world. And then you can see here, this is what they look like. It's interesting because they actually started making signs, Kirk. It was a lighted sign company that was founded in 1901. They later made home and kitchen appliances, police sirens, and circuit breakers, which is what we're seeing here. And then they eventually changed their name to Federal Pacific Electric. But what was really interesting about this is that they actually were best known for a line of circuit breakers equipment called stab lock. And these circuit breakers and electrical panels were used extensively in residential and commercial construction from about 1951. So it's a little bit later than the tower. But the product design was flawed and had a high failure rate, which was discovered by Reliance Electrical Engineers when they bought the company. So actually it was super dangerous. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea, even though it was the ones that were made later. This company in general was associated with electrical panels that were more dangerous than others. So just a little detail there.
That's what I found, especially the stab lock system comes around a little bit later in the 50s and through the 70s.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what modern day circuit breakers look like as we move away from fuse style ones. But you're right, language wise and the safety factor are hysterical for storytelling. Again, you would never know that this Federal Pacific Electric breaker has a stab lock feature or doesn't have one, or they created one future. But it's one of those deep cuts that now you know that they used to have stab block load centers that would fail under pressure and literally would catch fire.
Yeah. So element of danger. It's like really, really, really subtle foreshadowing for you're in trouble in this space, which I never would have guessed from a fuse box.
Really subtle, Kate. How about impossible to know? Because even that stab block trademark isn't on the exterior of the box anywhere, because the ones that you showed previously with that like tubular fuse, that would have been the style that was utilized here in the tower. So,
right.
This is like one of those things where like, this is only if you know.
Right. Exactly.
So if you're an electrical engineer, if you are in construction, you're an electrician, you might get the joke. Nobody else will. Unless you're a Distorian, now you know.
Yeah, now you know.
It was doomed to fail. Ooh, I like that. It was doomed to fail.
Doomed to fail. I love it.
That's true.
Nearby, there's also this like on-off I think it's a power switch. Do you know much about this, Kirk?
The little red box?
Yeah, it's like a little maroon one.
Is there 5 of them?
I don't know. I have a picture of one.
Well, because if there was 5, it would be maroon 5.
Oh!
This is a fused disconnect switch, sometimes called a safety switch. These were wall-mounted boxes designed to manually cut the power to a circuit or a piece of equipment, commonly used in industrial buildings, factories, and large hotels from the 1920s through the 1950s. Now, this specifically says on and off and has a lever next to it. I found a more modern style of one of these fuse disconnect switches where in the on position, the knife blade presses in a stationary contact, allowing the current to flow through the fuse's loading, meaning electrical current can actually go through. If it was in the off position, the blades would pull away, creating a visible physical gap or a true disconnection. And if there was a fault, there were cartridge fuses that would blow, protecting the circuit. So inside is kind of more cool looking. So this is what that knife blade system looks like of a fused disconnect switch. So this is like more of like a manual switch. It reminds me, and we're actually going to see these on the wall of the left path. So in our next episode, you'll be able to see more of these knife style switches, which are like a manual electrical switch. Reminds me of like when I would tinker and do Edmund Scientific projects and stuff when I was a kid out of a catalog.
Yeah, I love this comment in our chat from Kyler saying, if you have Federal Pacific in your house, get it checked. You most definitely have a recall. So we're saving lives here on Distory today.
There you go.
Don't have that in your house.
Makes sense.
I have a nice shot of kind of like going down the hallway here just to give you context of where those things are that we saw.
Can I talk about the going down the hallway thing?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because on the bottom of that picture are 2 very long rectangular diamond plated panels. And, you might ask yourself, what do you think are underneath? Do you know what's underneath, Kate?
I don't, but I would love to know.
You don't. This is exciting. This could house a couple of things. So these would be like entrenched below, and I think I have an idea of what specifically it really is, but they could have used them for electrical conduit, it could be for drainage, and it could be for steam lines. And the reason why those panels would be exposed is because if you needed to get access to those to get under that work, they would be embedded under the cement. So as a result, you need some way to access it. Because this is diamond plated, and diamond plating is for wet surfaces so you can get grip, I'm going to make the assumption, and especially where they are parallel, heading directly perpendicular towards the boiler room, I'm going to assume that these are steam lines. So when we're on this green sign, if you look directionally, the laundry room is behind us. So I'm assuming that this is excess steam or water or hot water that is going from the boiler area towards the laundry to do laundry facilities. Or at least that's my logical guess.
Interesting. Yeah. The sign says boiler room to the right, laundry to the left, maintenance to the left, basement level, and then exit to the left.
Yeah. In our perspective of when you exit out into this hallway, they're pointing forward towards the boiler room, and laundry and maintenance are behind you.
Right. Huh. That's interesting.
I think it's laundry water. I think it's hot water, Kate.
We're
in hot water now.
Get ready for a lot of steam jokes today, kids.
Yeah. The pressure is building, kids. I have to gauge your level of interest. By the way, if you don't get any of that, it's because we're going to talk about steam and pressure and gauges a lot in the future.
We do see some doors here as we go into the boiler room from the transition hallway. They look very similar to the ones that were in the concept art. They're almost like kind of like these very heavy duty doors.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
Sure, they're heavy doors, Kate, but why would they be so heavy? They almost look like a fortress. They have giant braces on the backside. They have riveted steel metal sheeting to them, Kate. Why would we need such a crazy heavy door leading into the boiler room?
I don't know. All I can think about is the Titanic.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
The watertight doors.
So these wouldn't be watertight, but they would definitely be used for, I mean, technically you could say for security, but they're not security doors. They're double enforced with the metal and with the bracing, mainly for two reasons. Fire containment's one of them, because it's not a wood door.
Right.
So it's a metal door. But for me, it's because of explosions, because the boiler is literally on the other side. So this would be for safety. The only thing I couldn't figure out necessarily is you would have to lock this from the inside, which means somebody's going, to your Titanic analogy, someone's going down with this ship, because if they were going to lock it from an explosion, the whoever is working the furnaces in the boiler would have to lock it from the inside, because there's no way to do it the reverse. And I kept on thinking, well, why wouldn't they just like put the hinges on the back? And the only logical thing I can think of is that you would have people that are either like fighting fires within there, and they're the ones that are controlling access, but would also need to be able to escape if they need to, versus if it was on the other side. But maybe both sides have reinforcement, and I just have to look to see if they have braces on the other side.
Looks like both sides have it in the concept art.
That would make more sense to me, but I don't know if that's here. What's weird is when you look at the actual reality, there is a flange, or not a flange, I don't know what the technical term, like door jamb. There's a door jamb at the top that obviously this would like seat this so that it stays there. So, right. I mean, it could work in the sense that if you had bracing on both sides. But I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know why.
I would think the most logical would be to have bracing only on the inside. But if somebody's working on it and in there and they're just trying to contain the fire as they're working, or trying to work on, I don't know. But I need to know if there's bracing on the backside.
Okay. So that's our new assignment, is to go look for bracing on the backside of the doors. Homework.
My life is very riveting.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
So let's head on into the boiler room itself. I have this really fantastic overview of what this room looks like, just to kind of help keep us oriented to where we are. If you're looking at this, you can see the little black arrows are showing the movement of the path. So that can kind of keep you on track, because there's a lot of black and white in this particular diagram. But it does show the main structures on this one, which I think is really helpful. And so I kind of zoomed into the part where we're at right now, just to give you a closer look. So we're headed in down at the bottom there where it says entrance, and we're going to go to the left first and see some things on the wall. The very first thing we see is the back side of these furnaces, which are those big box structures down.
The back side of furnace!
Woo! And this bell's gonna work out today. Got new jokes today, so I love it.
They're very old jokes. It's for a very old tower and an old man.
So I do have some wonderful concept art as we step in here, and I 100% failed at looking up how to pronounce this Imagineer's name, so sorry. But this is actually from the Hollywood Haunted Hotel concept art, and this is a fantastic one because it really shows people kind of walking on almost like a lopsided, like grading pathway with these looming furnaces that just have like sparks flying out of them, and like it is intense.
It's very menacing, and it gives you the concept for the first time of the furnace almost being like a structural monster.
Yes.
Both in size and scale, but also having like a facsimile of a face through the boiler components.
Yeah. So this is actually by Dean, I want to say Schutter, Tschetter, because I don't know how to pronounce that. But I just wanted to show this because this is most definitely where they pulled a lot of inspiration for this room, even though it was for an earlier concept. And then you can see some other concepts for this space. This is by David Durand. Exposed brickwork and electrical components and rusted boilers and all those kinds of things, which is very similar to what we have. But it definitely has an elevated path. And here, Kirk, you can actually see that there is an upper path and a lower one in this particular concept. It's very easy to see how it kind of overlooks the other. One overlooks the other. So that we didn't get until they did California Adventures version, which we'll do later on in this series. So this is the storyboard for as we step into the boiler room. This is scene 5, frame 57. It says this area serves as the secondary queue for the elevator load. Included within this hot and steamy room are piles of coal, broken steam pipes, fireboxes below the boilers, dripping water pipes, and conduit. Subwoofer audio effects enhance the ominous quality of the room. The sound of the storm continues, which, I was trying to think of it, Kirk. Have you ever heard the sounds of the storm in there?
I've never once heard like thunder clat at all.
No, I feel like you're pretty isolated from the storm once you get to this particular space.
I mean, it feels like you're an industrial, mechanical, metally room. I don't know what else to call it. You know what I mean? Because I feel, as you said best, isolated.
Yeah. And the only thing I think we see is, and maybe I think it's in that version too, where the lighting will flicker and get brighter and darker. Is that also true in the Florida version? I know that was true in Disneyland Paris.
There is definitely some flickering lighting effects for sure on the overheads.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably as close as we get to kind of registering that there might be some sort of storm that's messing with the electrical system. But yeah, I just think that was interesting that they were you're still going to hear the storm even though you're in the basement in the boiler room. I'm I think it's more effective that you don't hear the storm, but you could see it with the lighting kind of going in and out.
And to be honest with you, it's interesting because we've left worldly possessions and culture and humanity kind of behind in the libraries with all of these artifacts of culture.
Yeah.
And we've now gone to this very plain metallic world that's rusting away.
Yeah. It's 100% different than the library where it was refined and, well, not polished because everything's dirty, even dusty, but it is all a guest area. Now suddenly we're in this kind of rustic industrial area, a very change of pace there. I do have some information from the official Imagineering show info guide, which I can't show you guys, but I can tell you what's in it. This is from 1999, so it's a little bit later than when the attraction opened in 1994. It says the bellhop directs guests down the back of house corridor into the dimly lit, steamy confines of the hotel boiler room. A network of elevated walkways weaves in between the monstrous black furnaces that power the hotel. The boiler room floor beneath the walkways is littered with coals, some still glowing red hot, and the roar produced by the furnaces is almost deafening. Guests pass by a caretaker's desk that is clearly long since abandoned, suggesting that the hotel is somehow powering itself. At length, another grinning bellhop appears, graciously waving a hand to the service elevator standing ready to transport guests to the rooms, which we'll cover more kind of in the next episode. I thought that was kind of an interesting description, especially that the idea of this room powering itself, I think is one that we need to kind of hold on to as we move through this space. The first thing we see as we walk in is essentially the backside of the furnace, but it does have these doors on it. Do you know much about the functionality of the doors, Kirk?
Do I? So yeah, I do know a little bit about these doors, and I think the proper way for us to manage this is to cover the entirety of the furnace as we creep around and we can see more of it. Okay. However, just for right now, this is fire bricking And then those are waste gas doors. So, the inner workings of a boiler we'll talk about more and what this actually physically has. And in the top, that's actually a circular manhole cover where there would be water and steam in that steam space. But we'll cover more about what's occurring. But there's flames, there's gas, there's heat, there's steam. And it's all occurring in this fire bricked up that we're seeing the backside of the furnace.
As we walk by, we do see more of these doors on, I think this is the left side. We see more of the doors on the other side, which I thought was interesting, that there's doors on the left and the right. Am I mixing that up somehow?
So I think, yeah, this is on, as we've rotated around, this is like just an up close of another one of these pressure relief doors.
Got it.
Don't really worry about where it's necessarily. I'm pretty sure I had to lean over to get this one.
Okay.
Like over a corner somewhere.
Thanks, by the way, Kirk, for getting all of these fantastic photos for this episode, because
it was a very fun experience because guests kept on like thinking like, oh, he's just taking one picture. And it was like, nah, bro, I'm going to be here for a while. That's basically the conversation I had to have with people. And people look at you very oddly because they want to take pictures of what you're taking pictures of.
Yes.
Because they think that you're taking pictures of like, oh, is that a little Mickey?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Okay.
it's literally a gas excess vent door. They're like, what? What? I don't know how to explain this further.
Well, I think it's a weird phenomenon that I've found that as I am taking photos of anything in the park or video of anything in the park, everybody will come next to me and start taking pictures of the same thing because it must be something.
Yeah, right. But this is literally nothing to you. It like literally means nothing, and it should mean nothing to 99% of you. It'd be different if it's like, oh yeah, there's like I can bring somebody into the conversation and show them something fun.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like, this is a piece of a piece of a piece to get to a story. And they're like, well, I just want the story.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's not that.
Yeah. I did that I was in Frontierland in Disneyland and literally taking a picture of an empty space that had some like random rock work. And this person's like, what are you taking a picture of? And I was like, well, this is where a market used to be once upon a time in the early 50s, but it's not here anymore. But I just kind of need a video of this space. I'm like,
yeah, like think about how far removed that guest is from where your creative mind is taking to tell a full circle story with resources and evidence and receipts that they can't view now.
Yeah. So
they'd be like, oh, that's lovely, dear.
Yeah, that's kind of, they're like, oh, and they kind of like walk off.
Wonderful.
And I'm sorry. I know I disappointed you there. It's not, I got nothing. Anyway.
Yeah, people really, it is kind of, we are bastions of history here at Distory, and it is our goal to bring you into how does somebody formulate the creative and storyline and place you into these wonderfully thematic locations. And that's why we spend the time and attention to the details that no one else will, because we know that there's an appreciation for these as people mainly see the trees, but they don't necessarily, or they mainly see the forest. They don't necessarily see the trees.
Right.
So that's our role here, is to show you everything, including the bark and the roots and the wood and the rings and the leaves and the stems, because otherwise we wouldn't feel whole. We would feel like we are remiss in celebrating these beautiful structures and engaging attractions that Disney has created.
Well said, Kirk. Well said.
Thank you. You can clip that, dude. That's a promo for Distory.
Indeed. Well, that being said, we should keep moving because we got lots to cover here. So on the wall, we do see this Taylor level buoy full scope pressure transmitter.
Say that 7 times fast.
Which is an industrial device used to measure liquid levels or pressure in a closed system, such as a boiler, tank, or pipeline, to avoid overheating or dry firing, which would be super dangerous, basically not having water in the tank and trying to heat it up. So not a good thing. So how this worked is I actually have a close-up of like one that somebody was selling here, so you can kind of see what it looks like. I like the inside of it in particular. But how it worked is a float or buoy rests on the surface of the liquid. As the level rises or falls, the float moves accordingly, and the float movement is mechanically linked to a diaphragm or bellows. The pressure changes or float displacement changes are transferred into motion, and the motion drives a mechanical arm or gear that translate the movement into proportional electrical signal. The signal goes to a remote gauge, which is what you're seeing here, chart recorder or alarm system. So but this basically is it's just monitoring pressure. That's what.
Yeah, that's a full scope, man.
But yeah, so this is a pressure monitor. That's what I have for it. Unless you have anything else, Kirk, about that.
Nope.
Okay.
That was absolutely perfect.
Okay.
I have the same. The only thing that I will say is that it does measure the flow as well as pounds of steam per hour.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I'm playing it fast and loose with the word interesting there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm playing it fast and loose about a Taylor steam pressure gauge being interesting.
Now we arrive at the front side of the furnaces, and there are actually two in here. And it's interesting because this is the concept art for that Hollywood Haunted Hotel version from David Durand. And so this is one you can see that has the circle on the top and then like the grate. And so this is the one on the left side. And then I actually did find these photos from the Biltmore Hotel. I think this one is in Atlanta. But it has a very similar one where it has these doors and whatnot. And Kirk's going to get into the kind of the mechanics of how these work in just a second. But I just wanted to show you guys kind of what they look like with the lights on, so to speak, in a real world context. But this is the other one that's on the right side and is a little bit smaller. And I love this because I feel like they pulled this directly from this concept art. Because watch, it goes from this to this, and it looks almost identical to the concept art. It looks like it has two eyes and a mouth, and it's glowing, which I think is really fun. And I did find one that looks kind of similar that just existed out in the world. The idea that it has two eyes and a mouth, because, you know, in our culture as at large, we're a little bit scared of these furnaces, right? There's a little bit of fear, of trepidation, of things that kind of look like they've got faces to them. And so I was thinking about that, and I thought about which movie from our childhood made us scared of furnaces, Kirk.
Brave Little Toaster?
Oh, no, that one too. Gosh, I didn't even think of that one.
Well, that was. I think he was a car crusher, but he was also. I don't know if there was furnaces in there. If it was just a car crusher,
there was some
that
sort of
scared
furnace.
me about machines.
Okay, but no, this one was more live action. Like,
oh my God, dude, Home Alone.
Home Alone, yes.
Wow, yeah, you're right.
Which came out in 1990, and they were developing that concept that I just showed you was like 1991. So this would have been very prevalent, culturally speaking, for everybody in America / the world who saw Home Alone, which was a huge smash hit. That this, you know, the idea of the furnace coming to life and having a face, or having a mouth rather, and like going to eat you, you know, like, so I think they really did capitalize on that fear, and they like brought it into this attraction because it would have been very easy to recognize for people that this would automatically is scary for people because of that cultural context. And because Imagineers don't live in a vacuum, they get inspiration from everywhere. So it would make sense that they would pull it from there as well. And I want to say that my youngest daughter, she asked me what I was doing last night, and I showed her researching the boiler room and these furnaces, and Mom has a weird job. And she said, oh yeah, it's like that Mickey Mouse short in the boiler room. And I was like, the boiler room? Okay. And so we watched it together, and it actually is one of the newer Mickey Mouse ones. And it's about the boiler room, and it actually shows drips coming from pipes. And then it shows Mickey encountering a furnace that looks like it has a face and is super angry, and then like reaches for him and whatnot. And it turns out that it's just under too much pressure. And once Mickey relieves the pressure, he goes back to being a very happy little furnace. So just kind of a fun one that shout out to my daughter. Thank you for your help with Mom's research. But
that's a great full circle moment to contemporary now.
Right. Which I think is, it obviously does have a connection. A lot of these Mickey shorts that they've been doing, they tend to make things about classic attractions or classic characters and then bring some understanding to the next generation about what these things were that maybe like our generation or the older one even than us might have understood, but the youngers don't. So I think that honestly, they probably did create this episode so that boiler rooms are a little scary because nobody knows what a boiler room is now. They may or may not have seen Home Alone if their parents let them watch it, So I think this was a really clever move on Disney's behalf to kind of make boiler rooms scary. So
yeah. Just a very brief aside. I never realized how rich Kevin McAllister was.
Super rich.
Homeboy was swimming in it.
Yeah.
Like, did you see how big that furnace is, bro?
Yeah. The whole house is massive. Like, they're like, it's like a mansion.
It's like a multi-million-dollar mansion. And as a kid, I never once was like, oh, he's a millionaire.
No, that's a normal house for people to live in.
I didn't even think of the house as like a big house. I just thought of it as compartmentalized rooms, because you never really see it. And yes, you see the outside of the room or outside of the house, but the house doesn't look necessarily like a traditional mansion, you know?
Well, yeah, doesn't have cavernous rooms in it.
Right. It's like, it feels like a colonial, but it's a massive colonial.
It's a big house. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
They had lots of money. Anyway. Just a little bit of Kate's aside about furnaces and the cultural context of them. But Kirk, I think you need to teach us about furnaces and what we're doing here with them.
All right.
What's going on in here?
So when we look at this image of the boiler room, this is on the right-hand side. We still haven't even made it to the right-hand path yet. We're getting really close to that intersection, but we're just not there yet in the boiler room. But this is where you see the massive expanse of the furnace. So you see the boiler and the front of it, it's got that grating that's glowing like orange. That's to obviously be reminiscent of the firebox or the furnace air intake that's pulling and drawing in air to feed the fires, which are below on the inset access doors. There's also large piping and valves. We see a large hand wheel valve in the foreground, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I'll hold that. But that's going to give us access to water. There's also a coal storage barrel that is coal, so chunks of the raw material resource that they're going to be utilizing to power the furnace and get its energy. Although a lot of times these furnaces would eventually be powered by oil because oil was easier, less messy, and you could get them directly pipelined in versus having to get necessarily coal deliveries that were very heavy. And we will see in a later section in next episode a way that they are able to take in coal deliveries, which is kind of interesting. You do see some grading down here, and it's almost looks like train tracks on the bottom right hand side, and that's also going to be a part of this coal delivery process. But let's think about the actual furnace itself. So I'm going to pull up an image real quick, and this is part of the actual Biltmore. It's very gross, dusty, dirty. But to me, it feels so reminiscent of the tower itself. But this led me to a Walsh and Widener boiler company. So that's the one that they have in the actual Biltmore. So you can see down there, this is like an old advertisement for that, which Kate had shown us previously, what it looked like in the installation with the lights on. So that navy blue with the 4 compartments and the circular top. Now, how did these actual boilers work? Well, I'll do my best to explain it. I'm not an expert on these things, but we'll try to explain it. So essentially, a boiler would have a furnace, and the furnace would be heated up by coal, and fire would heat water tubes. The water tubes would eventually create steam and steam pressure. All of these things could be utilized for 1, heating water, 2, using steam for either it's actually like pushing pneumatics, and then the other one is it's actually powering engines. So all of these things can come from heating up steam and heating up water. Coincidentally, a lot of energy is made and power plants are run by heating water. Right. And in fact, nuclear energy, it utilizes a very similar, although much more complex system of heating water, creating steam, and then moving things. If you want to dial it back and really make it simple, think of a water wheel. and how water wheels work by water turning gears and nozzles. That's the exact same concept here. We're just utilizing the power of steam to move mechanical equipment. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
What we're looking at here, this is the external and intake or inlet pipes for cold water. That cold water pipe that we're looking at is actually going to go to the left-hand side. We're going to have like a pre-water tank, which, I worked in a brewery for a long time. We always had cold water on demand and hot water on demand because it takes a really long time to heat up water. So you would always want to have a hot liquor tank, or an HLT is we would have in the brewery. So similarly here, they would have a cold water tank. You could see that coal a little bit more, but then on the right-hand side, we get to see this Kennedy valve. And I just looked up Kennedy valves because I just thought it was interesting. And so the Kennedy Valve Company was created in 1877 in Elmira, New York. They still make and create fire hydrants, valves, and water fittings. And they were well known as being the number one producer of these back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The particular what?
Like your legacy. It's a valve.
Bro, they dude, like, I wouldn't be shocked if you found Kennedy valves all over your town, like municipalities. And also just like in the Disney parks, like random valves because these kind of seem to be the industry standard.
Kind of like the turnstiles were all the Perry
Right,
company.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's like certain companies that are known for things because of reliability. So Kennedy is one of those ones, and it just happens to be for basically controlling water and water flow. This is a gate valve. A gate valve is a standard choice in a steam plant and boiler rooms because they were allowed engineers to fully open or fully shut off a line with minimal resistance. Remember, there's lots of flow and water here, sometimes being hot or cold water, depending. But this is a main steam line valve that would control the steam flowing out of the boiler as well. It could also do the feed water. And inside of it, to see like how this gate would close, it used a wedge-shaped gate or flange that would be in the center. So like basically when you're turning that valve, you're just closing this. It's kind of like an on-off switch, but it's either fully open or fully closed. So when fully raised, the gate would have a unrestricted flow, and then when it was fully lowered, it would create a tight seal, which could be used either for steam pressure or for water.
Why would they need to turn the water on or off in this particular context?
Well, because if you weren't trying to generate any more steam, or if there was back pressure, there would be two of the major reasons why you wouldn't want water in there. And also, like, depending on if you want water being released into the system, if like you're trying to deal with a hot side system, you don't want cold water potentially flushing through and like ruining your attempt at making steam because you're constantly flowing in cold water into a hot water system.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We like it hot, Kate. Some, in fact, some do like it hot.
Some like it hot. It's true.
So yeah, so that's like a very, very simplistic. And if I screwed anything up, please let me know, because I don't have an engineering or a mechanical mindset. That's not how I'm more of a creative in the sky, like flippy dippy kind of guy. Less mechanical. I'm more flippy dippy than regimented valve kind of guy.
Well, I do have a question though, Kirk.
Yeah, please.
And I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay.
Why do you think that there are two furnaces here that are different?
So, you would have, I think you have one that's controlling the mechanical things that are within the tower itself. So think like you have a steam engine that's further down the road.
Yeah.
You also have the elevators themselves, and they're giant motors, which we'll see just before you're entering into an elevator. You also have within the system, you're going to need, for guests, hot water for both bathing and, like rinse it up and stuff.
Right.
And then you're also going to need hot water for the laundry. So there's lots of uses for all of these. I don't think they would, like, they have pool systems. I don't know if they would have been that fancy. I mean, the Romans had heated pools. I don't know if they would be that fancy, but I don't even know if they even thought of those systems, but that's also a potential reason to have a separate system.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards one was maybe the radiator for like heating the building, and the other one was for hot water. Like I kind of went for like
like a radiator system.
Or it's possible that one was like the older model and then they upgraded. Like there's a smaller one and a bigger one, and so it's or maybe they kept the old one for backup, for reliability, because like a prestigious hotel, you don't want to risk your guests getting cold or running out of like hot water. So maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why it could be. But I think
all of those reasons, both redundancy and to your point, I think you nail it perfectly with multiple use cases.
Yeah.
So like you need it for just in case, but also because there's lots of stuff.
There's lots of stuff to heat. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Got to create lots of heat.
Mel needs a separate furnace just for her showers. I don't know how that lady takes such hot showers. My wife she's crazy, dude. She takes the hottest showers. It's unbelievable.
That's how Elliot is. I always have to like dial it back before I get in so I don't get scalded.
Dude, it's like bathing in lava. I'm like, how are you this? How is your skin? You're
Yeah, I don't know. Some people have more tolerance for it than others.
Yeah.
We see on the other side, on the left side, there is kind of a coal hopper, which you were talking about, the coal. Do you think they're actually on tracks? I didn't even see the tracks.
So the reason why, this is just a guess, because I'm not actually seeing like a bin that could go. I mean, there's that bin, but it's too tall because of the gating structure. Because like you would think like it would be shorter so it could go underneath. Because later on in the room, you'll see an area where they can like lift and hoist with pulleys and chains that are very heavy duty. And there's really no other reason for them to exist. So, but coal is heavy, and here's a hopper. You would think that, okay, well, they would need to move it from one place to the other, but maybe these like ash pit doors or whatever that we're seeing here that say Erie City, maybe that's like coal storage, and when they open them, coal flows out, and then they push it up those tracks on that hopper. I'm not making that. I didn't make that connection, like to look at that track until I left.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I have to see if that.
There are definitely tracks on the floor, which I never really noticed until now. So that's interesting.
Right.
So the Erie City door that's on the wall is likely from Erie City Ironworks. This company was prominent manufacturer of steam engines, boilers, and other industrial machinery, particularly active in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And interestingly enough, Kirk, these are the same boiler doors that are found in Folsom Prison. This is constructed in 1857. So, but anyway, Erie City Ironworks is where that's from. The other thing we see in this area is a bucket that is sitting on top of an open crate with a mop below it. And the storytelling is, of course, that there's like a leak. Something is dripping. Some pipes are dripping, and they're catching it in this bucket. This is actually an old effect that has recently been restored to the Tower of Terror, which is a drip effect. It's actually an illusion, Kirk, because it's actually quite clever, because the door's open and it looks like where's the water going for this? Obviously we know that the water has to go somewhere. It can't drip forever. Somebody would have to empty that bucket. Well, there's actually it's an optical illusion, because there's a 45-degree mirror that's inside the crate that's concealing the drainage pipe for the water. So it's like in the corner, there's like a little mirror that you can't see, which I think is so
such
clever.
A fun effect.
Isn't that neat? And I want to thank fellow historian and collaborator for this series, Joshua Harris from the E82 project, for kind of letting us know about this effect and how it's done. So thank you so much for that, Joshua. I also wanted to mention that this kind of like eerie lighting that we have here, we didn't really mention that, but color psychology we talk about a lot here on Distory. And obviously, like, red and orange is communicating heat, hazard, and intensity, communicating that this place is dangerous and unstable, maybe even alive with something unnatural. Red is often associated with overheating, warning lights, danger, all those kinds of things. Subconsciously, it's telling us something's wrong here. In horror and thriller genres, red often signals paranormal activity or invisible threat, and creates this undercurrent of unease and urgency, making guests feel like they shouldn't linger. So it's interesting that it's contrasted with these dark blues almost, you know?
Yep.
So it definitely like makes the red and the orange more intense, I think, because there's the cooler blues that are in there. But I just wanted to point that out as well. I think this is a good place for us to pause real quick and take a quick break to talk about some of the things we got going on over at Walrus Carp and Disney Cicerone. So, Kirk, what do you got going on over there recently?
Well, it's spooky season here. So the big thing for us is we make a bunch of different spooky merch. And we've gotten into the tie-dye game last year, and we already sold out through them. The mineral wash Trick or Treat Ghost Mouse ones, they flew off instantly. We are only making a handful of them, but there is an option for those that missed out. We have a Walrus Carp, which is our little fun little vampire walrus bundle, which has multitude of things. Not only a new hat that has the vampire walrus on it,
so cute.
It comes with the static cling, comes with the croc charm, and then we also have the two-sided. It's got the front of the vampire walrus and then the backside of him on like a blood red tie-dye. So then you can find all of these Halloween items and more to deck out your spooky season at walruscarp.com. Free shipping on everything.
Great. I love this.
Kate, what are we looking at?
So I just wanted to just mention that I'm currently working on a new fiction series, but this is one of my latest fiction books that I've published, which is Who the Mirror Reflects. I'm bracing myself for going to see the rivers of America all drained and taken apart. But in this book is kind of my own love letter to the rivers of America, tucked into the pages of a love story between two Disney history-loving cast members. It also includes a little bit about Sunset Boulevard as well, since we're in this Tower of Terror series. But to me, like, if you're a little bit heartbroken about what's going on over there, or you just really want to relive the beauty of the rivers of America, there's some moments in here that I think will really help that. So just wanted to mention that, and all of my books are available on Amazon.com, and this one is also available on Audible if you prefer to have me read it to you. So, all right, let's hop back in. So you can see it here. This is kind of a great picture looking back down the ramp towards those furnaces that we just bypassed. And of course, the coal, which actually looks a lot more full in this one. I think this is an earlier photo from the 90s. I guess the coal has been used over time because there's definitely less coal in it these days. I think this is like a water storage tank is what you were talking about, Kirk, or like I don't think this is the actual one heating the water, but I don't know if you know for sure.
Yeah, I think it's it could either be a feed water tank. So it could have either preheated water in it, or it could have cold water, or it could possibly serve as a steam reservoir. So just in case if there's like more or less demand for steam for operating all the machinery.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's more of a holding tank.
Non-specific.
Yeah, I don't think because it doesn't have any pressure gauges or anything on it, I don't think it's under pressure. I think it's more just holding water for all the other systems. There is also this red box on the wall that has kind of a switch on it as well that looks like you can throw. And I wondered if you have anything about that one, Kirk.
Yeah, so this is a fuse safety switch enclosure. There were a couple of companies that made these, Square D, GE, and Cutler and Hammer. This is similar to the knife and blade switch style that we had earlier, where it's just on or off, and this could cut external power to either the pumps, motors, any of those kind of things that are functioning here around this area.
There's a lot of on-off switches in this place. It's like...
Yeah. And then below that is a smaller, like orange style box, which is connected to a small electrical conduit, which I'm assuming is either a starter motor or a junction box, which could also serve as like a local disconnect for if they wanted to shut down just like one piece of equipment or a gauge or a panel versus having to shut down the entire system.
That makes sense. These look more like more water holding tanks. But there's two on the bottom and there's one on the top. Do you know anything about these, Kirk?
Yeah, so again, this is like, it could be three things. It could be feed water heaters, right? Mm-hmm. So the vertical tank could hold and condition any kind of incoming water. The horizontal drum above could act as a de-aerator, removing dissolved oxygen and gases that could corrode the boiler tubes. Mm-hmm. they could be condensate return tanks, or they could be steam separators or accumulators. So the horizontal drum in that instance would be to serve as a steam separator, where water would be entrained water could get removed and sent to dry steam into the hotel's distribution systems, thinking like radiators and whatnot.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know the answer.
Yes,
it could be any of those things.
I know. This is like a lot of water holding tanks, and it's hard to say which one does what.
I don't know if our arguments would hold water.
Oh. Then on the wall, we do see a whole bunch of different gauges. We see like a collection with a little silver box. Then we see a trio of 3 gauges that have like in these like black casings, I guess you could say. So the first one is a silver box with red lettering that says Masonillion. I think that's how you say it. I have things about this, Kirk, but what do you have information about this one in particular?
I have that founded in 1882 by Edmund B. Masonillion in Massachusetts. They became the leader in steam plant instrumentation and control valves. In the 1920s and 30s, they were supplying automatic regulators, gauges, and control panels for power plants, refineries, and large buildings, including hotels. Today, they're part of the Baker Hughes, but they're still known as industrial valve and pressure controls. The one that we're looking at is an early pneumatic controller or regulator. Inside would have been pressure balancing mechanisms like bellows and diaphragms that would automatically adjust valves in response to changes in steam or water pressure. The 2 small gauges on the box face would have monitored the instrument's input and output pressures, and the larger round gauges mounted around it would likely be for steam pressure, feed water pressure, return condensate pressure, and possibly even a draft gauge. I was able to find one of these Masonillion pneumatic pressure controller 0 to 30 PSI new NOS F20s on eBay for $800. So if you're interested in purchasing the exact model that is in the Tower of Terror, you can purchase one of these
for $800.
For $800, which I feel like, hey, if you want to be a part of the tower a little bit and pretend and fiddle with knobs that won't do anything for you, you can do that.
But I mean, it's a functional piece of equipment, so that's why it's so expensive.
Yeah. Who's using that, Kate? In your house, bro? What are you talking about? You crazy, girl.
I don't know. I mean, but
it is though. It is like it actually has a function, and that's probably cheap for one of those. Like, what do I know what a pneumatic pressure is? That's probably like they're giving them away at $800 or your best value. I might ask him for $5. What do I? He doesn't need it.
Right. Well, and I think this is where we have to talk about the idea of pressure monitoring and the importance of it. It was very, very important that they monitored all of these very carefully. There is a caretaker that's supposed to be stationed down here to watch this and make sure that these things stay within the safe range. Their safety valves, would vent steam if pressure got too high. There was manual shutoff valves for sections of the system to be isolated for repair, which is what we're seeing with all these switches. But because explosions were a very real danger, especially back then, they still are for steam systems. There's still a possibility of explosion, but there's a lot of more safety features than there are now. But if they didn't manage the pressure, it's very likely that they could explode, which is kind of what Kirk said earlier with those doors that would need, for furnaces and fires and things. So the threat is that all of these gauges are telling us that these things need to be very carefully monitored. Mm-hmm. However, there's nobody in here monitoring them. So the threat is
that's not good.
Very real for us that nobody's monitoring this boiler system, and it's very clearly on and burning. So this is the threat for us, and that's supposed to be the sense of danger is not just because we're seeing all these fires and like it's a scary place, but because it's actively not being managed by anybody, and it has the threat of explosion.
You know what's funny is I never once thought that we were going to explode in there until right now. like as like a just like a regular walk around guest. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's not something that we think of consciously in our world. Like we don't think of like that boiler might explode, but you think about people who were on like packets, like steamboats, right? You think of like the Mark Twain or the Liberty Bell, right? Those were all steam driven vehicles, but they were, or boats rather, and those exploded quite often. Unfortunately, it was a very dangerous mode of travel. And they, if they were, sometimes they were like next to each other in the pier, and one would explode and it would take out the other one. Like that happened because they didn't monitor the pressure, or if the captain was trying to get upriver extra quick and they just didn't manage the system properly. They're an extremely dangerous mode of travel until they invented more better ways of actually monitoring the pressure with these valves that we're seeing here. That was an invention. I think it came out I want to say in the Parisian like exposition or whatever is when somebody actually invented that way of monitoring pressure that we see now in the tower. And that revolutionized all of these things so that it made everything safer for everybody. But before then, there was no way of actually like knowing what pressure was under unless you could just kind of paid attention to it really closely.
Yeah, if you listened, you could sometimes hear dun 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 dun, and that's how you would know that you were under pressure.
So the other three things that we see there for the gauges, we see these are simplex valve and meter indicators. And it's something that I thought was interesting of these is a lot of these were very sophisticated for the era that the tower is set in. This is supposed to suggest that the hotel had a state-of-the-art mechanical system with all of these gauges as well. But these simplex valve and meter indicators actually did find an ad for this. So this is from 1927, and it says, in March 1924, an iron removal filtration plant was designed and built, and at that time, 5 simplex rate of flow controllers were installed. These controllers are vital elements in the operation of the plant, preventing surging and the breaking up of the filter beds, thus permitting the greatest bacterial efficiency. So what is this doing here in the tower? Well, it's regulating the flow rate of either water or steam. So this is what actually regulates that. That's what I found, Kirk, unless you found something else.
Oh, I found something.
Okay.
I found also an ad, but mine happens to be from August 26, 1930. Simplex boiler-fed meter, known from coast to coast and further for extremely accurate and dependable record of boiler feed water flow. My favorite of their like ad copy is boiler feeding is never uniform or smooth. Like as if like, bro, we had this problem. Like everybody, like that was their, you know how like good marketing starts with a pain point, right?
A problem.
And then it solves your problem. Boiler feeding is never uniform or smooth. Accurately measuring and indicating such a flow is possibly only with a sensitive meter. One like the Simplex Venturi tube meters.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Solving the world's problems 1 meter.
They are, dude. They are. That's it, man.
It reminds me of when Ross Geller on Friends, he talks about sediment flow rate.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
That's what we're dealing with here.
The water flow rate that we're dealing with, yes. So at this point now, we are going to make a right turn into the right path where you can see here on the map, we're going to follow these arrows and kind of like the zigzag path towards the loading area of the Charlie load lift. And Delta, I think, is below there as well. So that's where we're headed now. And you can kind of see where we make this turn here into the right. So I also have this photo that is a construction photo of when this area was being built, which I think is really interesting to see how they made the platform. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's under construction. And it's also fun to see how like all the piping work is like brand new ducts at this point. But obviously like the tanks are old and they're antiques. So you can see what was new and what was old when they installed it. And then we do come to this General Electric boiler. Before Kirk tells us about this boiler here, I do have a little bit of, this is actually the model for the Tower of Terror. Before Disney has a tradition of making models before they actually build the whole thing out. And this shows a this is where we're at with this boiler here. You can see it. And then the elevators are just beyond. So this is actually like a little miniature Tower of Terror boiler room, which I think is really fun. I always like seeing the models.
All right. So we've already talked ad nauseum about boilers. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of necessarily this general electric one in terms of like its functionality outside of boiling water, because that's basically what all of these things do. But you do notice that there is on the right hand side, which is unique, there is lots of gauging on here, but there's a little conical red, it's a feed hopper. So it's like a little, it would hold granular material like coal fines or coke or sometimes sand. It literally was like in case of emergencies kind of thing. So like if something went wrong, you had this little tiny, like you could douse it with sand or whatever to make it go out, which I thought was kind of cool, which you don't see on any of the other boilers, like a way to control the boiler itself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, there is also a small little box on the outside that is labeled Maxon. This is a Maxon automatic fuel shutoff valve, commonly used in boilers and furnace systems. It actually has a motorized safety shutoff valve. The new ones would use a solenoid inside of it. The box-shaped actuator controls the valve. And the little window shows shut when the valve is in the closed position. This is for fuel safety control. It prevents gas or oil from flowing into the burner while the boiler isn't firing. It also has an automatic shutoff if pressure or flame or temperature controls detect a problem. And then there's a system interlock, which typically is wired to the burner management system, so the boiler can't ignite unless the valve is confirmed closed before startup. So this would have been mounted on the fuel line of the feeding or the fuel line feeding for the boiler burner.
Huh.
And this is basically the last line of defense against explosions. So if you had a unmanned boiler, then if there was any unburned fuel that build up, this would be a critical safety device to shut off.
Which is important, and it's good that we have it there since there's nobody monitoring this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a note about the little like canonical fire bucket that's hanging there, which has a point on the bottom. And the reason why is so that somebody can't remove it and then set it down somewhere where people won't be able to find it if there's a fire.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So they have.
That's interesting. People are so dumb. I love that. Because that solves a people person issue, you know?
Yeah, because somebody could easily just unhook it from there, gotten away or something, and just put it
Yeah,
down.
that's such a simple solution to a common problem of people misplacing things. If only I could put a conical thing on my keys.
I put an AirTag on mine. But they actually have these in Main Street Station in Disneyland, at least. I don't know about Disney World. I'm suspecting they have it there too, where they're actually shaped similarly, not exactly like a cone, but they're shaped so that you cannot set them down anywhere. They have to be hung up so that everybody will know where they're at in case of a fire. So I thought that was interesting.
That's very cool.
And then there is this board also that's a safety check board with chalk writing on it that says basically when it was inspected, and it says pressure level, and it will say like the PSI and then a date and a time. So the last date the pressure levels were inspected was July 24th, 1939 at 6:30 in the morning. There's also a date on here that's July 22nd, which was the opening day for the Tower of Terror in 1994. So little nod to opening day. But I think it's really interesting, Kirk, that like everybody disappeared from the tower in October, and this is July was the last time they had safety checks.
Yeah, they haven't looked after any of the boilers since July.
So somebody was not doing their job or something, which is really interesting. And I'm not really sure why they chose that, except maybe to get that 7/22 date on there. But I don't know. To me, that was odd that they spent months not checking this thing at all. Maybe it's to make it more dangerous that it hasn't been checked in a long time.
What's weird is they were on a daily routine because it was the 20th, 21st, 22nd. There was only a lapse there of the 23rd, but they were checking every single day for the most part. So this is very odd that we are way out of spec date range.
Right. Like what happened with July 25th and on? Like where do they go? And so it's strange to me that seems incongruent with the date they disappeared. You would think it would be the days leading up to, the October 31st, but it's not. So an interesting detail. And then on the other side, like the right side here, as we come around, we see this like motor assembly here, which I think is what this is. Do you have technical ideas of what this could be, Kirk, before I get into the other details?
You're correct. They are motors, likely AC induction motors, which would supply rotational power. There's also, you can see in the center, the shaft and coupling, which would lead to the pump housing for pumping water. There's also heavy cast iron bearing flanges and bearing blocks. And then we also see a casing for I'm going to mispronounce this, a pump volute, which is a centrifugal pump chamber where water condensate was accelerated by a impeller and then discharged into a piping system.
Interesting.
So again, this is like all the similar types of like, you have the boiler for heating, you have all these condensate and feed water storage. Now we got to move it. How do we move it? With these big old pumps. How are the pumps being powered? By steam. So it's all kind of self-fulfilling system that requires at start heat and water. Heat and water create the majority of our energy, and it's no different here in the tower.
What's interesting though, Kirk, is that clearly somebody was in mid-repair of this motor when they must have disappeared, because there is a chain that is looped over the pipe that clearly goes on that gear that's on the left-hand side. And it has not been repaired. It's not been added. So you could say that the motor probably isn't functioning as it's supposed to, which also adds another layer of danger, potentially, that the system is not complete in the way that it was supposed to be. You can see more of those chains laying on, like getting ready for repair, or the old chains are sitting on there. And there's also toolboxes that are sitting around. There's 2 toolboxes that are open as if somebody's actively repairing it. And then I want to see, I have a closer picture. Then on the table, you actually do see a wrench and some work gloves and an oil can, as if somebody is mid-repair, but it's not complete yet. The other thing you see on this table is a radio, which there's a couple of radios in this space, which is actually kind of interesting, Kirk, because I was thinking, like, unless they're all tuned to the same station, that'd be really obnoxious to have this guy listening to something over here and this guy listening to something over here, and like there's like multiple radios.
I think it'd be so loud in there, they probably couldn't hear each other.
Yeah, that's possible. It's true. But this radio is possibly a Zenith radio. The design of these radios were inspired by the iconic skyscrapers that were being built in this period. This one in particular has an illuminated tuning dial, so it's showing that it's actually on and operational. So somebody left the radio on before they left. It wasn't like they shut it off and left work. They clearly were like in the middle of their task before they left. But I do have what it looks like in the back, which I think is kind of cool because it has all these like tubes and wires and things.
Did you ever make a radio when you were a kid, like a crystal radio? Did you ever do those? They were really cool.
No, I never did. I feel like I powered something with a potato once.
Definitely, you have to power things with a potato as a kid.
That's what we do. Well, I think that is a good place for us to pause here in the boiler room so that we can cover the second half of it next week. But Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
I feel like the pressure's rising and I can't wait to escape.
I sent you a song right before we started this that was Steam Heat. I think it's from the Pajama Game from like 1954. And I was singing that in my head the whole time I was studying this episode. And
it was perfect.
Boy.
It literally fits the tonality. I like that they utilize like a steam sound at the very end of that clip you sent me.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's a fun song. And so a little bit of homework for you, Distory people who just want to get in the mood of the boiler room as you wait for next week's episode. But thank you all for joining us for this episode of Distory, and we'll see you next time for more explorations of the boiler room.